our moderator's questions. What will your strategy be for interacting with the state government? What sets you apart from the other candidates?
So I've already had an interaction with the state government, and it has not all been bad. We worked with their housing department to bring 2 housing programs to Montgomery County to help people become owners of housing and make repairs on housing. I will be honest, I've found, for the most part, the people running departments up there to be very professional. People I dealt with on transportation issues actually were pretty serious, thoughtful people. I don't always agree with the decisions they reach, but I did feel that I was dealing with people who were not political hacks, and that's a good thing. So I'm going to continue to work with the state government. There's no point in ignoring them. There's no point in going after them at every opportunity, except when he's wrong, and then you should say that the governor's wrong. But I think, you know, if we need things, we need to be able to work with them and get that. I worked with the state on the Purple Line, and I believe there's going to be an announcement shortly about something they're going to agree to make a concession on the trail. It's not a big concession, but it's a small concession. But you know, they were willing to make it because somebody walked in and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you, and I know that you're really angry at these people, but I think there's a concern here you need to address," and they were willing to address it. So I think, you know, you keep doors open, you talk to people you can work with, and until the governor says, "Don't come here anymore," I'd be at his door saying, you know, you got to help us on this. We are all in this together.
So at the beginning of this year, in preparation for launching my campaign for county executive, I met with every one of our state senators and state delegates from Montgomery County, and what I heard over and over was that we need a county executive in Annapolis, that the governor, the House Speaker, the Senate President identify one person as the spokesperson for our county's changing demographics, our rising school population, our traffic congestion, our need for greater investment in transit and roads, and I will be that county executive. What I'm really good at is counting votes and working effectively with other elected officials and institutional leaders to achieve big goals. And I will be a county executive who builds coalitions with other county executives, who works closely with our House and Senate delegation. Prior to my election to the county council, I was chairman of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. I got a lot of these folks, I helped them, a lot of them, get elected. I've known them for decades. I know them well, we work well together. So I will ensure that we get a fairer shake on education funding, on transportation funding. Whoever is elected governor a year from now, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to support the Democratic nominee. But if Governor Hogan is reelected, I will work well with him, I will work effectively with him for the benefit of all the people of this county. I understand how to do it. I've been at this job for 16 years. I'm not running as an outsider. I'm the guy who knows how to get results and how to make government work for you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the second part, which is candidate questions. So in this part, we're going to be a little bit more relaxed on time, but within reason, and each of you gets to ask 3 questions of the other one, and then we'll have an answer, and then we might have a rebuttal after the initial answer. So let's see, whose turn is it? George, it's your turn to start with a question, and you can, you know, pick whatever topic you want to talk about first and what you'd like to ask Mark, and have the audience hear.
So I really believe in a bright future for this beautiful county. I've lived here for 44 years, and I think it's a wonderful place to live. I've heard Mark's critique of pretty much everything, and I'd like to ask him, is there anything that's happened in the last 30 years in Montgomery County that you thought was good?
That's really funny, considering that most of our votes are 9-0 in the council. It's kind of hard to critique and be against everything when most votes are 9-0. My objections primarily are the way we treat land use in the county and the way we treat citizens in the county in the process of doing land use. But I think the county has definitely been able to get some things right, particularly if you're going back that far. The MPDU program in its inception was absolutely revolutionary. Does the MPDU program meet the needs that we have today? Should we look at modifying it? Absolutely.
Could you explain what the MPDU program is to people who might not know?
Yeah, moderately priced dwelling units. I think the planning process in an earlier iteration, I think it's had a couple of iterations, iterations, but an iteration when they worked really hard with communities to build consensus, where people with different points of view sat on committees and they went, block by block through Silver Spring, and I sat on those committees, and I wasn't a majority, didn't represent a majority point of view all the time, but people worked with each other, and they worked with the developers, and they were able to get the plans that were generally accepted by the community, and I think that was really, really important. I think that the Purple Line, I may have questions about some aspects of it, but I think getting it done is really important. But I'll remind people that I was on the county executive's advisory for transportation, and me and the environmentalists on that committee recommended to the council that the Purple Line be built first and the ICC not be built, but if at all, be built last. And the county council did not follow the advice of those of us who said put the Purple Line first, they put the ICC first. So if you're wondering about you waiting so long for the ICC, if they had followed the recommendations of the environmentalists on that committee, you would have had the Purple Line. You're not waiting for the ICC, waiting for the Purple Line. You would have had the Purple Line already. I think the school system has done some fairly good things. I mean, it is difficult. I mean, and I'm always reminded that we are better than the rest. They came through today with the meeting with the school board. They always put up the statistics that whether you're talking about, race or gender, Montgomery County does better than most other jurisdictions anywhere. And that's something to be proud of. But it's not always enough to be better than everybody else. Sometimes you just have to be really, really good. And having the number of kids who aren't successful that we have today continues to be a problem. It's not an easy problem to fix. And I'll say that, we are too quick to put the burden on the school system, and not quick enough to put it on social programs, which, it contributes mightily to whether kids are prepared to learn or not.
Okay, that was a good long answer. George, do you have any comments that you want to make based on what Mark said, or add anything, or?
So, I'm the co-founder of Purple Line now. I have always wanted to put the Purple Line first. It has always been my top transportation priority. I didn't hear very much in my friend's response that he thought was good, so I guess he doesn't think there is a whole lot that's good. In fact, he said that he would have built the Purple Line first, but earlier he said the Purple Line is going to destroy communities. I don't think the Purple Line is going to destroy communities. I think it's going to enhance walkability. I think it's going to provide connectivity. I think it's going to make it easier for people from across the income spectrum, but especially lower income workers, to access jobs quickly and effectively. It's going to provide access for our premier research university, the University of Maryland, to NIH. And it's going to make it easier to get around both for transit users and for those automobile users, where other automobile users will be riding the Purple Line. And walkability, you'll walk to Purple Line stations. Cities that are well served by transit, like New York City, people are healthier, they're more fit because they walk to transit stations. So I'm very, very positive about the Purple Line. I've always put it first. It's simply not true to suggest that I ever suggested that the ICC ought to be built first, but my good friend has said a number of things tonight that are his interpretation of facts.
Okay, now, we're going to have the next question from Mark to George, but this time we are going to have a time limit. That was an experiment. Two minutes on the response, and if the question takes more than a minute and a half, we'll cut you off.
I'll do this in less than a minute and a half. George, you ran on the end gridlock slate, which was funded in part by developers. You were a supporter of the Inter-County Connector, which has been built and costing billions of dollars of transportation funds that otherwise would have been available for other projects. It also did massive environmental damage. And now, after having been the champion of ending gridlock, you dismiss school overcrowding and road congestion as a sign of success. I believe those things are manageable. And so to me, the problems we're confronted with the failure to build classrooms and the failure to properly provide transportation in this county is actually a failure to do what we should do to support the development that we say we support. I vote against development because I don't think we put the infrastructure in place to support it. And I'm curious how you go from being the end gridlock guide to the gridlock is a sign of our success.
So I guess I'll take you out of the undecided column and you won't be voting for me. That's okay.
That's a primary, what do you expect?
I expect, we're running a terrific campaign. I'm delighted to be participating in the public campaign finance system. I'm only accepting contributions of $150 per person, and that system didn't exist in the past. It only exists in 2018 for the first time in Montgomery County. We're the first county to use it. It's an experiment in democracy. I hope it's successful. I participated under the campaign finance rules as they existed. I've been elected 4 times. It's been a great privilege to have been chosen by the voters of this county to serve them. I'm very proud of my record. I'm very proud of the people that I'm helped. I hope that I'll have the chance to help more people if I'm elected county executive. I'm an at-large council member. I drive across this county all the time. I use the inter-county connector, but I would have built the purple line first. And you want to go back and relitigate the 2002 election. I won. You were not successful that year, but you came back in 2006, and we've served very effectively together since then, despite your tendency to dig up, old battles and old debates. I'm more interested in the future and how we can achieve big goals for this county, provide equity and social justice, health care for all, affordable housing, look out for those who need the most help from the government. That's what I'm about. The 2002 election was a long time ago.
Okay, George, you get to ask a question.
Yeah, I really didn't come with a long litany of questions to ask my friend Mark. We work together every day, and as Mark says, most of our votes are unanimous. So I think what I offer is an in-depth understanding of how to look out for those who most need government on their side. And Mark's been very supportive of those issues like Montgomery Cares, issues like ending veterans homelessness. I've been the leader. Mark has been the leader on other issues. I was happy to work with him on minimum wage. I was happy that he worked with me on passing Sick and Safely. I think some of Mark's comments tonight, like accusing the planning board of genocide and ethnic cleansing, indicate that that's not really what you want in the office of county executive. I guess I would ask him, are you going to be accusing people of mass murder if you're elected county executive, as you did earlier this evening?
I didn't accuse anybody of genocide. I will say that when people make decisions that they know are going to displace the most vulnerable people in our community and are indifferent to it, we have a problem. And I will say that having said that to them, they withdrew their proposal by Monday. And that was important because I wanted to protect Long Branch. Long Branch is my neighborhood. I was not interested in raising the quality of life, I don't know for who, in that as place you referred to as shabby, in that place. And I look at, these are the kids I taught in school. And when I was on the council, I said, couldn't we just once revitalize a place in Montgomery County and let the people who lived there before we revitalized it stay there after we revitalized it? Is that asking too much? So, yeah, I was mad. And I imagined that, you've been known to fly off and say things. I occasionally say things too. And probably most human beings fly off and say things. But that's not the general way that we work. And it happens occasionally, and it happens occasionally. I really believe that I provided leadership on this council, and I worked for the people at the bottom. I did 2 minimum wage laws. I did the most aggressive housing legislation that we have ever done, that would have been more aggressive had it not gotten amended to some extent by the committee, and had not our housing director fought so hard against some things that were just basics to decent, affordable housing. So I've been a champion, and I'm going to be a champion. And I know right from wrong, and I just don't count votes. I didn't get elected to count votes. That's why I'm happy to lose 8-1 votes sometimes. I got elected to represent people and stand up for them, and stand up for them even if I stand up by myself.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got to know both of these great candidates. When we started organizing this forum, we invited the rest of the people who were running for county executive. And I guess Bill Frick declined right away, pretty much. He couldn't make it. And then Roger Berliner actually had something come up where he had to meet with the delegation to Annapolis because he's the current president of the county council, so he couldn't make it. He sent his regrets. And then the latest person to announce is Rose Krasnow, who is she's on the planning board. And is she here?
No, the name,
Oh.
pictures.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so we ended up with kind of extra time, and we'd like to open up the microphone to audience questions now. So if people could line up, and